Facilities meeting to order at 12:42. And first thing we gotta do is a motion to approve the minutes of the prior meeting. I have a Mr. Sokol, second by Mr. Strau. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, carried. We're going to go in this following order today. We're going to go to the airport facilities portion first. And then we will do the public works section second. So let's go right into, everybody get out their airport agendas, please. We're going to go right to 3, which is action agenda, the new business. And I will turn it over to Mr. Hajos to talk about the request to increase the capital project H303 runway 119 environmental assessment in the amount of $1,288,500. Mr. Hajos.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first resolution is on page 2. It's a request to increase the capital project H303, as the chairman just said, for runway 19 environmental assessment. We received this grant, or we applied for this grant and received this grant this past summer, and it was signed by the chairman. This is to book the money on within the capital project.
Okay. Discussion on that. Move it by Mr. Simpson, second by Mr. Stroud. Discussion. Mr. McGowan.
Yeah, I just have a question. Since we have a new kind of proposal that's out on the new runway expansion, a change that Don has put out, well, why are we spending all this kind of money on an environmental review?
He'd be involved in the discussion.
The project that is being proposed, or the alternative that Don and I had looked at for the runway extension, is still being reviewed. But regardless of what route we take, we're still going to have to do an environmental assessment for the project. And we were already awarded the grant money. This first resolution is just to put the money within the project.
Ms. Bramer. Finish your pizza.
Okay, but Kevin, how much of the 1.2 million is actually going towards the hydrology study versus preliminary design?
Approximately $275,000 is for the hydrology study.
So if we, may I, Chairman?
Yes, continue.
So if we already got the money, which is great from my perspective, I think we should do the hydrology study, but I don't think we should be going forward spending money on that other design phase when that might not be the project that we want to go forward with. Is it possible to just expend the money on the hydrology study?
Well, we're going to be doing in a logical order. So we will start with the hydrology study, and if we get to the point where the FAA does buy off on this alternative, if that comes to fruition, then we wouldn't be doing the unnecessary steps. So we wouldn't be spending the full amount.
Yes, Ms. Bramer.
How are we going to know when the FAA has even reviewed the new concept plan? I guess I'm lost in where we are in that versus the path forward for the other things. I mean, we haven't even done the speaker.
And you want me to answer that?
Yeah, go ahead.
And that's part of this process, Supervisor Bramer. First and foremost, the board and this committee has already approved us to go forward with the design for the full runway extension. We're still moving in that direction. Regardless of which way we go, we're still going to have to do this environmental assessment for the project. That's where we're heading right now. As Don just said, we're going to do the hydrology study up front. We have gotten some feedback from FAA on the alternative that we had proposed last committee that this committee had directed us to go forward with.
Right.
It was a bunch of questions. And we, with CNS, are answering those questions. We haven't gotten through all the questions yet. Until we do, we won't know where FAA is with it or if they will even approve this, but we're still moving forward in the direction of what the committee and the board approved for the full runway extension.
But this board also was their consensus to have you look at the alternatives. So I think that maybe the committee should be kept apprised, I would like to be kept apprised of when you're going to say, okay, FAA shot us down on the other thing, and we're gonna go forward with the full original proposal.
We could do that. Again, as I said, we just received, I think it was 8 questions that FAA came back with. I don't know, I don't have all those questions in front of me to let you know what each one of them were, but each one of them is going to have to be very detailed to explain why we want to go that route or that alternative. And with CNS, Don and I are working on answering those questions. I'm more than happy to provide them to the committee when we get through answering the questions, but I at least like us the ability to be able to answer those questions first, or at least to do a draft answer, and then we can bring it back here through committee. But again, moving forward, this is for the full-blown runway extension, and again, the committee and the board approved it. We're just moving in a direction to do the environmental work that is needed.
Yes, privilege of the floor, Mr. Whitehead.
Thank you. So listening to what you just said, is it possible that this contract could be rewritten so that it's emphasized that you're looking at the hydrology study? I mean, I notice here, it's just a contract. It doesn't have anything about what order things are going in. There's $425,000 in there, for instance, for wetland mitigation design and permitting. Something that would not be necessary if you do what you said you could do and not have to get into any of the 10 acres of wetlands that is in the original proposal. So my concern would be if you let this contract for $1.275 million, and then later on, say a year from now, you say, oh, we don't need to do any of this stuff, and then they come back and say, well, too bad, we already done it. So, I mean, and I've got the contract to show you that, you know, you asked us to do it. So, I mean, it seems that, you know, this has been in the works for quite a while. We got the money for this, 1.3 million covers the 1.275 rather nicely. This whole proposal with X and Y is something that's very new and didn't figure in this. So all I'm saying is, can't we go back and do what Ms. Kramer just suggested? And yet, I think what you just suggested is that this should be done in a certain order, and let them know that it should be done in this order, and that there are certain break points here, maybe, you know, stop point at this point, and then let them rebid this. Get through the hydrology, and that's a point where we say continue on or not.
Well, we've had that discussion with CNS, and if it comes to the point where there appears to be significant environmental impacts to the full-blown extension, and the FAA does agree to the alternative that we put forward, then any of the unnecessary work wouldn't be done at that point, and we wouldn't have to pay for it.
Right, but you know, that's verbal, and the lawyer would tell you it's a lot better to have it in writing.
Well, the grant was based on the contract.
Doesn't Article 12 say that?
We just can't change it in midstream here.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but couldn't we make stipulations in the resolution that we could stop after the hydrology study was, if the FAA said, okay, you don't need to do any further, the hydrology study is stopping us. Is there somehow we can put that in the resolution? If that would make the committee comfortable? I mean...
The fact that the hydrology study is going to be done first before everything else? Does that give you a problem from an engineering perspective?
I'm not an engineer, but
Well, I'd like to jump back a little bit to what Mr. Whitehead said. You're correct. We did say the hydrology study would be first. But we still do have, even with the alternative we have, we still have wetland impacts. So we're still going to have to do some wetland mitigation, some work associated with those wetlands. We said the impact of wetlands was, for the full-blown 10 acres, we still have maybe an acre that we just...
a little over an acre.
A little over an acre of an impact of wetland, even with the alternative that we're proposing. So it's not, you can't eliminate doing that environmental part of the work. We can go back to CNS and say, okay, let's do this in a phase. Let the contract read as a phase. Phase 1 would be hydrology. Phase 2 would be this. And if, by chance, that DEC or somebody comes back or FAA comes back and says, you know what, we'll go with alternative because there's too many impacts, and we stop them at that point. But they still have to do some of this environmental work up front, regardless of what way we look at it.
Thank you. But one quick follow-up.
Go ahead, Mr. Whitehead.
Thank you. So, we were told that this new proposal might be $2 million, then I heard maybe $3 million. But, we've already spent a lot of money. Here's another 1.2. I mean, there's not going to be any money left for asphalt. What is the 3 million or 2 million entail? Is that the total cost, or is that just the cost to complete from this point on?
The 3 million, and Don can correct me if I'm wrong, the 3 million that we discussed, the original cost of constructing the full-blown runway extension was that $8 million range. Now the full-blown runway extension cost, construction cost, we're saying is about the $3 million range. And again, the numbers that we provided the last committee with that alternative, they were only estimated numbers, nothing more than that.
To clarify that.
It's really just, at this point, it's just conceptual.
Right.
It's a concept. Obviously, we've gone this long. We know there are environmentally sensitive areas out there. If we get to the point where we're hitting a roadblock, that's what the alternative is there for.
Mr. Wild and Mr. Garrity.
No, I'll yield to Mr. Garrity.
Article 12 says that we can abandon or amend the project. The sponsor shall have the absolute right to abandon or amend the project. So, I mean, that gives us the right at any time to serve Scott and say, wait a minute, we want to change the project now. That's the way I read Article 12.
Warren County is a sponsor.
We're the sponsor.
I looked at the language, so it
So-
looks like we have the ability to do that at any time.
So we wouldn't need to rework the resolution, is that correct?
It's an option that you could. You could state in the resolution that certain work is going to be done first.
What's the committee's pleasure?
I'm good with the way it is.
Matt?
I don't think, yeah.
I'm good with the way it is. I am too.
Okay, so we'll keep the looks like to me that's a majority vote. So we'll keep the resolution as is, but the fact that we can amend it or change it is very powerful. So if we need to stop it at some time, we can by law. Okay, I'm comfortable with that. Any other comments from anyone concerning this resolution? Seeing none, I'm going to call the vote. All in favor of the resolution, form number 9, say aye.
Aye.
Against? It's carried unanimously. Okay, next on the agenda is
Contract.
to rescind.
No, it's a contract.
Number 5.
Yeah, the contract that goes with the,
Where we?
we approved increasing the capital project, and now
Correct.
we approved the contract that goes along with it.
Okay, so we have to now approve or not approve the contract that goes along with CNS Engineering. Do I have a motion? Motion by Mr. Sokol, second by Mr. Garrity. Discussion. Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Passed. Now we're on resolution 257. Next on the agenda is request to rescind resolution 257 of 2018. Don, you want to talk about this just for a second, or?
Yeah, this capital project was created incorrectly. It should have only been a budget amendment, so we're going to remove it. And then farther down, we're going to request a budget amendment for the marketing grant, which is from New York State, 100% for $40,000.
I'll make a motion to rescind.
Motion by Mr. Garrity, second by Mr. Simpson. Discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Passed. Let's see here.
Next one down is to actually amend the county budget to allow for the marketing grant.
I'll move it.
Moved by Mr. Garrity, second by Mr. Loeb. Discussion? Yes, Mr. Wild.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kevin or Don, can we get a description of what you expect to do with this grant, what you expect to be able to accomplish?
Yeah, so it's a 100% grant from New York State. It's a marketing grant. And we're working with the EDC. We had a lot of interaction with that Bartholomew. And we're going to have a product that Ed can go to different companies who might be looking to relocate to the area and actually show them non-aeronautical and aeronautical parcels that are available at the airport, utilities, zoning, all the different things that they'd be interested in. So we're going to have not just a piece of paper that's going to go on a shelf, but actually a marketable product that we can use to try to increase revenue at the airport.
Any other discussion? Okay, I'm going to call the question. All in favor of entering a contract with McFarland and Johnson, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Passed. All right, the next one is, pardon me?
Yeah, that was a budget.
That was a budget amendment?
Yeah, now would be McFarland Johnson to do the actual
Oh,
marketing.
now
work.
we'll do the actual McFarland Johnson, excuse me, I jumped ahead. Who wants to move the contract with McFarland and Johnson? Mr. Strau, second by Mr. Loeb. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none. I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Passed. Okay. Request to authorize Superintendent of Public Works and Airport Manager to oversee operations and maintenance of county-owned hangars. Don, you want to just make a few comments on that?
Yeah, so in order to be able to effectively manage the new 18 hangars we're going to get as a result of the FBO contract change, I need to be able to interact with the tenants, and immediately enter into contracts with them, establish and adjust rates for the hangars, and keep that process going on a day-to-day basis. It would be cumbersome to come to committee each time a new tenant went or came out of a hangar and then wait for the next board meeting. So we're trying to streamline that, and my intent is to keep you updated on current hangar rents that you can adjust if you wanted me to adjust them, tenancy reports and revenue reports.
Kevin, would you like to add?
Yeah, and the approved lease agreement that we would use, of course, would go through the county attorney's office.
I'll move that.
Moved by Mr. Loeb, second by Mr. McDevitt. Any discussion?
A question,
Yes, Mr. Loeb?
when will those hangars, I haven't been out to the airport, have those hangars been built, or when do we expect them to be built?
These are for the current 18 existing hangars that we have. The other hangars
The
that
old
we
ones?
have. Yes, that's correct. And then the others is under a grant that we are, I think it'll be next month that we bring the design contract. We received the grant award already for the 20 new T hangars, and that'll come in January's committee.
So this resolution we passed actually will cover
Cover
current
all.
and future hangars.
Any other discussion? You're welcome. Any other discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Okay, now we're going to go to pending and referral items, which is goose egg, none. So now we're going to go to number 5 on the agenda, which is information for discussion and review. I'm going to hand it over to Kevin and let him talk about the current hay crop land lease. Kevin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Over the past 3 years, we've had Ideal Farms in there as our, basically they hay the land, and not this past year, but the 2 previous years, they grew corn out of the land. They've had a lot of difficulty with our property, although the soils are conducive to them for producing a half a decent crop. They run into equipment repairs because of the stones and boulders and such that they've come across in the field. We've had them walk the field and look at it, but they decided this year that they didn't want to renew the lease. One of the discussions with them was to make those soils better, and that they would think about possibly bidding on the next one if we put it out, was to be able to have a 10-year lease to basically be able to fertilize that soil over the next 10 years to make it even a better soils for them growing their crops. If most of you know, Ideal Farms is probably one of the largest farms around here. I believe they milk over 2,400 cattle each day in 3 different shifts, and they were a great partner. But we think with putting out a new 10-year lease, hopefully we get somebody like them back in here for our land, for our lease agreement.
Although there's never a guarantee, are you confident we'll get some people interested in replying to the RFP?
The last RFP, Mr. Chairman, that we put out, I think we had three proposals. One of the things that we think we would do in the lease agreement or as part of the proposal is have them incrementally over the years, that the more each year they're improving the soil a little bit more, they pay us a little bit more per acre, whether it be for hay or, I think they had a price this past time for hay was $40 an acre and the corn was $50 an acre, so we would try to work something like that into the RFP.
Okay.
I'm confident we'll get more bidders on it.
So should I ask the committee if they want to put together a resolution for an RFP, or?
We can just direct them administratively to do it.
Very good. Okay. Is it the pleasure of the committee, Mr. Lowe?
Just one question, where actually is this located? Because I've never seen cornfields on that.
The emergency access road off of runway 12 that comes in off of Ridge Road. On both sides of that access road, they had cornfields. And then on the northwest, the north, even on the east side, I think they've had the hay field.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Wild.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Kevin, did I hear correctly that the soils have degraded over time?
They have.
Is it because we didn't allow them to fertilize, or because they just did
It was
preferential
never
planting?
It was never fertilized before. I mean, so they would like to be able, or any farm would like to be able to treat that to get those soils back up to. I mean, they're decent soils, but they say they still need the nutrients to be put back in the soil out there.
So, would this committee like to have Mr. Moore go forward with an RFP process? Is that the pleasure of this committee? All in favor of doing that, say aye.
Aye.
Against that? Okay.
There you go.
Mr. Moore and Mr. Hajost. Actually, Mr. Hajost.
Delegated.
Brian wanted to do it. Yes, Mr. Lowe.
Mr. Chairman, just, thank you. Just one question. We're talking about the environmental impact of the airport project. Because of the location of these fields, if they're going to fertilize, will that fertilizer impact the environment of the area?
The fertilizer, or if they were to fertilize or put manure down, they don't put it in, they're upland of our drainage swales, and they're far enough away from our wetlands or the Marl Fen for that matter.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. The next item on our information for discussion and review is the alternate runway extension project proposal. CNS Engineering County are addressing questions from the FAA planner related to the proposed alternative. Kevin or Don, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit. We did communicate with FAA on the alternative. They, again, came back with 8 questions, specific questions that will take a little bit of time to address. Don and I have received those. We've actually passed them off to CNS, and we're in the process of trying to address those questions right now.
Thank you. Would the FAA be getting a little confused? We're going forward with what the board's desire was, which was to go with the full-blown runway and so forth. But if I was at the FAA, I'd be a little confused, I think, because now the same lead agency, Warren County, saying, hey, by the way, we're thinking of this too. Would that, am I misreading that, or would somebody at the FAA get a little confused of why are you floating this, or why are you asking me this, when you guys are the lead sponsor on agency on this?
Right, so in this response back to the FAA, we actually kind of did a little synopsis of from the beginning to where we are now. And even the FAA recognizes that after 4 environmental assessments, which is basically unheard of, that there are some sensitive lands at this airport that a lot of people are looking at. So they're very much in tune to this airport, and knowing as we go into EA number 4, if we do run into some significant environmental roadblocks, they understand that this, we're giving them another option here. So they understand this project. They've been intimately involved with it for all these years. So I think they're partnering with us on this.
So if I read that right, of course, no one can, they're saying, hey, we think there's some problems out there, so it's best if you have an alternate plan.
I think we're saying that.
But we're saying that because we don't have the confidence that the FAA may approve this. Okay. Mr. McGowan?
Yes, I just want to go back to the fertilization, because I remember being at the Heritage meeting downtown Glens Falls, and one of the farmers did come up and said that he's got the berms and everything up, and the groundwater actually comes up on the other side of the berms. So I'm just a little concerned with the Merle Fen and that, and if we start dumping fertilizer too close, I just remember that farmer saying that, and it just popped up in my head, so I just wanted to bring it to the committee's attention that,
Thank you, Ms. McGowan. Any other comments? Any other comments or discussion? Yes, Mr. Simpson.
On the marketing and promotion plan of the airport property, will that include the development of the property, the ability to develop the land around the airport? Say, I'm also chair of the Warren Washington County IDA, and we talked about, property that we acquired through this process.
But you're referring to the property within the IDA?
No, I'm referring to potential other properties that the IDA could enter into an agreement with the county. So is that, in other words, I'm asking as, from the Warren Washington County IDA, is there interest in looking at properties
That are next to each other?
if they're close? Doesn't have to.
Well,
On the other side.
This study is going to identify all the eligible properties that the airport owns. Obviously, some of them may abut where the IDA has. and-
Somewhere on the same side of the IDA, if you're up the road or the end of it.
We're open to a partnership.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to open up privilege to the floor, Mr. Westcott.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted some clarity on the alternative proposal. Your proposal that you gave us the other day had two options, X and Y, at $2 million and $3 million. That's construction costs, estimated. Still a lot of work to be done. Okay, clear on that. And then the environmental assessment that you just got approval on is for the prior project, but I heard you're still going to need to do some sort of environmental assessment should the alternative project be approved. What I would like clarity on is, can you go ahead and use that current approved environmental assessment to do the alternative? You can. That's based on this provision that Supervisor Verity pointed out. You can shift it to that. Question then, how much do you think that would cost? You were talking about originally like 10 acres of wetlands, going down to 1 acre, I assume. Will it be cheaper, less expensive environmental assessment? Will there be savings there? Or will there be the need to spend the whole 1.2?
Well, if it went from the full 1,000-foot project to our alternative project, it would be reduced savings. A lot of that, because there'd be a lot less mitigation, there'd be a lot less off-site, or maybe no off-site mitigation. So yes, there would be a reduction in cost.
So you got the 2 or the 3 million construction costs plus the environmental assessment costs, which includes the hydrology study. Are there any other expenses that would be part of the alternative proposal in addition to construction and environmental assessment? There's been a certain amount of money spent to date, correct?
There has.
So that would have to be put against the project too. So we're really talking something more like, well, it's more than 2 to 3 million. It's going to be 3 to some odd. But after all is said and done.
And Mr. Westcott, I can't give you an exact number. Maybe it's closer to 4 million, all said and done with the engineering. And then again, if it was the full blown, it would be the 8 million for construction, and maybe with all the environmental issues that may come up with that, it could balloon up to 10 million, 12 million. I don't know. I don't have an exact number for you, but could I see it getting with the $3 million construction, and then with the environmental design work, the seeker work to go along with the EA to finish the EA, it could be around 4 million.
Okay. Yeah, I just trying to get a sense of the total cost, if there was anything else that wasn't listed on your proposal that might be coming up that would also add some cost to the project. Thank you.
Is there any other discussion on that particular topic? Now, I'm going to turn it over now to our county attorney, Mary. She wants to discuss the FBO contract. So, Mary, take it away.
The current FBO contract expires on December 31st, so if the board would like to move forward with an FBO contract and not have any, if you don't want the service to stop on December 31st, then the board needs to approve that FBO lease today, so that it can be presented for a public hearing on December 21st, and then you would approve it at the full board on December 21st.
So, like Mary said, we're going to need a motion from the committee to approve the FBO agreement. I see Mr. Simpson. I see a second from Mr. Stroud under the parameters of the previously approved MOA. So, discussion. We have it on the floor now. We have a second. Is there any discussion about this contract, FBO contract?
This is approval of the public hearing.
This is approval so we can have a public hearing.
That's
That's correct.
No, this is approving the FBO lease.
This is the actual approval of the lease.
Already approved.
Do we have any discussion? Any comments? I see a hand back there. Mr. Whitehead?
I want to clarify, there is going to be a public hearing?
There is. The committee needs to approve it in order for it to move on to the public hearing in the full board. So once it gets to the full board on December 21st, there will be a public hearing before the full board approves.
The public's going to be asked to comment on this on December 21st, and it expires on December 31st. So if for some reason something comes up that the public has to say, you have two choices, either ignore them or put down shut down signs on the airport. I mean, that's basically it.
I mean, we could extend for a month under the current
I think under the
terms.
current contract, we might be able to extend for a month with the current contract terms.
I'd just like to remind you that a good number of us went through an advisory committee, devoted our time to Mr. Schwenker in among them, and this occurred 2 years ago, and we were starting to complain after a while that it looks like there was a lot of foot dragging going on here. Not careful. We're going to be making decisions very late in the process, and I'm saying now that looks like the decisions are being made very late in the process.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Anyone else with the privilege of the floor? If not, I'm going to turn it over to Kevin because he has one item he wanted to talk about.
Last committee meeting, we had Adrian here from the Northeast RVers who parks up on the hill, and although it wasn't a referral, I just wanted to bring it up again because he actually hasn't paid yet for this year. He had requested for the relief of the $10 per RV up on the hill, and
Just a point of order, please. I don't think we voted on
Yeah, we'll go vote afterwards. Yeah, I just remembered. Thank you, Matt.
Are they related?
No.
I think you got to vote.
Oh, we can vote right now. We're voting on the FBO contract. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Okay, passed.
Sorry, Ken.
No, it's process. So, again, Adrian was in here and he had asked to have that waived. I think it was my recommendation that it's $10 per RV. I don't think it's significant. We allow them to use the airport, bring their RVs on the airport property. The $10 fee is also, it supplements some of the overtime that we put in for the Balloon Fest. But I believe we didn't make a decision last committee meeting, but I thought we said we were going to bring it back to this committee. So I'm just
Mr. Strauss?
He doesn't want to.
I'm just having a problem with, you got a $150,000 RV and you're going to complain about $10?
I agree.
Huh?
Should be $50 in there.
Further discussion on this topic, Mr. McGowan?
We do charge $15 for VIP pass, don't we?
Kevin?
We do, but we don't, we're only charging them $10 for up there.
That's what I'm saying, it's a heck of a deal.
Further discussion on this topic? I mean, Mr. Wild?
Leave it alone.
You know, I brought it up before, going rate for an RV is probably $50-$60 a night.
Leave it alone.
Right. So, you know, they're getting a good deal.
So I assume, but I don't want to assume, that this committee wants to keep it as is, correct?
Just one other thing, how many RVs did we have up on the hill last year? This year?
100 this year,
Year before?
75 to 80.
I'd say leave it as it is.
So this committee has decided we'll leave it as is. Okay, very good. Anything else with the airport? Any discussion? Yes, Mr. McGowan?
I just was wondering if Mary had a chance just to reread Article 12 and the abandonment and the amendment of the project and termination to make sure that if we do anything, it kind of sounds like, not that I'm an attorney or anything, but to make sure we do have something in writing.
I think the short answer is that I'm probably going to be making a lot of changes to this contract. And that will probably be one of them.
Thank you.
Okay, now we will turn over this section over to Frank.
Good Thanksgiving.
And thank you very much, Don. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you. We'll turn this portion over now to the Buildings and Grounds and Frank, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Under action items, first is a resolution, notice of intent to backfill a position. The senior custodian has announced that...
I'll move that, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Mr. Sokol, second by Mr. Garrity. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Moved. Next one.
Next item, the next two items on the agenda are similar to earlier this year. I brought Constellation Energy in for the electrical provider for the county. These are for Direct Energy, who provide the natural gas for the county. As I explained last committee, or the previous committee when I brought Constellation, these fall under the MEGA contract, which is the Municipal Electric and Gas Alliance. So I'm seeking to enter into a contract with Direct Energy. What I'd like to be able to do is ratify the actions of the chairman of the board to be able to sign for these today, because if we delay them any longer, they will increase the price again. In the packet that I provided you today, they're already different one from the drafts that I handed out the other day. The other day I handed out drafts and they were $350 for Decatherm. Now they're up to $402. Last year during the winter months we averaged a rate of $417, and it was a variable rate last year. This year I decided I think it was better for the county, looking at how long of a period we extended at that $417, it'd be better off that we do a fixed rate for the entire year. So this is just to lock us into that fixed rate, and it actually would allow the chairman to sign for them today.
Move both to the floor?
Yes, motion to move it to the floor. Mr. Simpson, second by Mr. Wild. Was that Wild first, Mr. You were first? Doesn't matter. Okay. All in favor say yes. All.
Yes?
And against? Aye. I got a text right during the thing here, and I kind of threw me off my game a little bit. Sorry about that.
The answer in your phone.
I didn't answer it, but it vibrated. Okay. So that was approved. Now we go to, we approved both of those? Let's see here.
Yeah.
Yep, approved both of those. Now, referral and pending items. Mr. Wild, I'm going to refer this part now to you if you've got any updates.
Mr. Chairman, I'll be very brief about this. We did go out to bid. We produced an RFP for the sale of the property. Bids are due today at 3 o'clock. They're opening at 3:05, and I'll have more to report next month.
Perfect. Kevin, would you like to add something?
I just have something real quick to add. Is last month the committee had authorized me to obtain appraisals for the property. I actually just received a service provider agreement from one of the vendors who gave us a quote. I'm actually going to turn it over to Mary. It's $2,400 for them to do an appraisal. I can do this under my authority. We don't need a board or a committee resolution for this. And we'll see what the property value is or appraised at for that property.
So what do we
You don't need to do.
why would we do the appraisal if we're doing the RFPs?
And I can probably let Supervisor Wild talk to this, but dollar amount comes in for the RFP or not, maybe what this committee or the county would want to approve, we at least can see what the property value is worth. Right now, I think it's assessed at 2.9 million, but that's for the
Something
entire,
million,
the entire 14.8 acres. We are proposing to subdivide this property to 10.3 acres to be sold, and then the 4.5 acres for the county.
Okay. So we'll go forward with the appraisal then, and,
Unless the committee would like me to hold off on the appraisal.
what's the committee's preference?
It's gotta be done anyway, right?
To go forward with the appraisal?
I would.
Okay. Sounds like that's pretty unanimous. Okay, go forward with the appraisal. Mr. McDevitt?
No, my position always from day one has been that we have a piece of property that may very well be fraught with environmental complications. You know, we can subdivide it, we can propose to subdivide it, but ultimately, when it comes down to the closing table, I don't think you're going to get a bank to finance it. I don't think you're going to get an insurance company to insure it. And the ultimate conclusion is we're sitting on an extremely environmentally sensitive piece of property that ain't going anywhere. So, we can go through the exercise. I think it's a waste of time.
Thank you, Mr. McDevitt. Any other comments? Mr. Hagels?
I just with the referral and pending items, everything that discusses D&G back to, I think, August of 2017, I just want to know, based on this committee, can we remove a lot of the pending items that are on here? Most of them have been cleared up already with the monthly leases and such, even all the way up through me attaining appraisals for the property. I'm just wondering if we can
So,
remove those.
if I can add something, Mr. Chairman, the lease is still, extending the lease is still an option on the table. Right? So we should not, I don't want to think that that's gone away.
No, the lease is fake. The lease is fine.
We can, though, remove some of the items on here on the pending, and yeah, we'll streamline that, seeing that now we've covered all that. So we'll streamline some of the referral and pending items concerning D&G. Okay, any other comments with D&G? All right, then, hearing none, I will go now to Mr. Morehouse and the court project update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The long and short of it, I guess, is we're about 95% complete on phase 2. Touch-up items, some sprinkler system items. Our heat needs to be coordinated so that we can read it and adjust it. But right now, the schedule is we will be down to just a punch list by December 1st and hopefully have turnover mid-December of the building. So
It's ahead of project, right? I mean, that's way ahead.
We weren't expecting to be here until June or July.
That's what I thought. I thought we're like, that's 6-7 months ahead. That's great work. Really good work. I wish everything would roll that smoothly like you two in your department has done with that courthouse. Any comments or discussion about the courthouse update from Mr. Morehouse? Yes, Kevin?
I just have one last item, and I think you were all copied on the email from Marcy Flores for the Public Defender's Office, but Frank's guys got in there, especially Nancy Ross, and did a lot of great work and got it done fairly quickly. So they were up and running. I believe Marcy said in the email that they were ready to start moving their furniture into those 2 offices that she had asked for.
Excellent, thank you.
She is extremely ecstatic.
So she is.
Motion to adjourn. Motion by Mr. Simpson, second by Mr. Wild. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Adjourned.